Carl Sagan could not have realizing just what
powerful. This country is very powerful. It's far more powerful than people understand. We have weaponry that nobody has any idea what it is, and it is the most powerful weapons in the world that we have. More powerful than anybody not even close.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
What's up, guys? 60 Minutes is
Breaking
retarded.
news tonight. A Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
From the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Oh, well, hi there. I'm your host, Ashton Forbes. How are you guys doing? Just kidding. It's Dark Ashton. And look, I've got my dog here, Lulu, that I keep there with a shock collar that I shock anytime she moves away, guys. Hey, guys, happy Monday. Hope you guys are having a good one. Guys, today we are talking about nuclear weapons. As you heard, the big news that Trump has restarted nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons testing. And you just heard he went on 60 Minutes and tried to explain to the idiots of 60 Minutes why we needed to do that, why we needed to test nuclear weapons. Well, tonight we're going to learn about what nuclear weapons are. We're going to learn from the guy himself, John Nuckolls. John Nuckolls, who helped develop clean thermonuclear weapons, guys. Clean thermonuclear weapons. Okay, guys, right off the bat, I am now Ashton the Demon 4 Orbs, chat. That is my new nickname, Ashton the Demon. I'm coming for that technology. I'm coming for that booty. We're going to steal all the technologies that are out there. At this point, I'm still surprised that people doubt me. They doubt me. And shout out, hat tip to Ian Carroll, who decided to give me the moniker of the Demon. Don't get in my way, chat, because I'm going to get that technology no matter what happens. I like you, and I want you. We can do this the easy way. We can do this the hard way. Okay? That's what I have to say about your free energy technologies, your neutronic fusion reactors, your propulsion systems, your super powerful lasers, your wormhole producers, your thermonuclear weapons, all of it. And we also going to take those free energy microchips too. We want some of that as well. If you have not listened to my most recent interview with Tommy's podcast, check it out, guys. Talk about the implications of these thermonuclear weapons, AI, the development of these AI platforms, and what will happen to humanity in the future. So listen to those. Also, 2 more quick shout outs. Going to talk to Salvatore Pais and Dave Rossi and Jason Giorgiani all this week. So we got a lot of big collaborations coming up, guys. Whew. If you still doubt me, we just did a live stream on Friday about the thermoputer. That's the new name for it. It's already been designated. The thermoputer by Xtropic. And just yesterday, Elon Musk replied to them, said, "You have a working thermoputer?" And they said, "Yes, we'll show you a demo." So we've already probably missed our investment opportunity because now they probably don't need our investment anymore. They just got literally Elon Musk interested in the thermoputer. I don't know how people are still doubting me. I don't know how people are still doubting me. Literally have not missed on the technology yet. Have not missed on any of the technologies yet. I think the biggest miss was thinking that magnetic motors were the future. That was me thinking regressively for a brief moment. And now realizing, no, we're talking about Microchips that are measuring the ether. Of course, they're using Josephson junctions. Of course, they are. We're talking about free energy microchips. We're talking about aneutronic fusion that doesn't produce radiation, doesn't produce heat. That's the level we should have been thinking on. That's the disclosure that's happening right now. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on political update stuff, but there's a lot of big topics. I was planning a full live stream to talk about Dan Farah going on Bill Maher to talk about aliens and stupid shit and age of disclosure. But instead of doing that, we're just going to play one short clip, and I'll maybe do a follow-up later on. I wrote all these notes around, talk about it. So at some point in the future, we're going to talk about aliens and physics related to alien stuff and disclosure, but it's just so stupid that we're just going to watch just this one clip, and I'll just react to this.
Things have changed a lot. I mean, again, I'm old enough to remember when it was just the kooks who thought about this. And I just want to say, I think if you don't think this is happening now, I'm not sure who the kook is, but I don't think it's me. I really don't. It used to be crazy people or people out in the middle of nowhere who got anally probed and all that kind of... And now it's, I mean, it's not just the military people and the Defense Department people, but everybody. You did a great service with this room because you put it all together and you see all these people, not just Rubio, it's bipartisan. You see Schumer and Adam Schiff and the senators and very, very serious people, the people with the buzz cuts in the military, talking about this and saying the kind of things that just cannot be explained. Things have changed a lot. I mean,
okay, so I watched this interview of Dan Farah on Bill Maher. And also, by the way, the reason why, guys, I'm not yelling in actual true Dark Ashton character is because Lulu's right there, and I do not want to disturb her. This is like a literal miracle that she's like sitting there like this. I'm telling you guys, got the secret shocker. So here's the things. I'm just going to sum it up for you. First of all, he calls them UAP. Anybody who calls them UAP, just get out. Get out. I'm not listening to anybody talk about aliens that says the letters UAP. That's just some bullshit. The moment you're trying to redefine terms, you stand for everything I'm against. I hate how they redefine terms, how we've turned plasmoids into field reverse configurations. We've turned cold fusion into Leonard, into all these other names. Like, you just call it what it is. It's UFOs. It was always UFOs, and it's going to still be UFOs forever. It's going to be UFOs forever. He calls it anti-gravity, which shows that Dan Farah doesn't really know what he's talking about. Like, anybody that's really in the weeds on the science of anti-gravity technology or gravity, you're not calling it anti-gravity because you start to realize that it's just a misunderstanding of the universe, that space isn't empty and that we're in a medium. So it's not like we're calling it anti-gravity because it's not like gravity is this magical force that's pulling on us all the time. Gravity is just like our interpretation of this extra dimension that we're in. So if we can manipulate this, then we can cause propulsion to occur. And so I think the people that are smart, they'll call it gravitational manipulation because it's not as simple as just anti-gravity. But at the same time, gravity is just a pressure force. It's just a pressure force. They also call... it's transmedium. The transmedium because the plasma manipulation of gravity doesn't care about the medium because it's like a medium beyond the medium that we perceive. It's the underlying framework of reality. It's space-time itself. This is how they can achieve hypersonic velocities is they use a plasma sheath. Plasma is the big secret to all of this. Plasma is nuclear physics. And so there's a connection to UFOs. They do get, the UFO people get this stuff right, including Dan Farah, when they say that there's this connection between UFOs and nuclear weapons. Yeah, they're one and the same thing. We are seeing the nuclear weapons. When we see plasma orbs flying around, those are almost certainly our non-fission triggers in our thermonuclear weapons. In fact, we're going to go over that in just a few minutes here. Here's the question. They said this is a serious issue. People are taking this seriously now, which they absolutely are. Marco Rubio, they somehow convinced Marco Rubio to go on this movie and give it some sense of credibility. Because everybody else is just basically a left-wing deep state stooge who's in this movie. But here's the thing. What is the issue? People need to push back. Is that Bill Maher in that clip there? This is a serious issue. What is? What's the serious issue? Are the lobster people coming out from the ocean depths? When are we going to see one? When does this become a serious issue for anybody in the real world? And what is it? Is it that it's aliens? Is it the technology? Like, people need to be specific about what the issue is. Just saying there's something out there and we don't know. If that's the case, then you don't know if it's a serious issue or not. You don't know if it's a serious issue if you have literally nothing to go on. Why is it a serious issue? That's why what people should be pushing back with. And when I replied on Twitter, that's how I replied. I said, first, define to me what the issue is, because the reason why I say this is the military knows what these things are. You have to be so naive to think that the military doesn't know what UFOs are flying around and what they are, or at least have a really good idea of what they are. Really good idea of what they are. What I'll say is that stock is rising. Stock is rising on the idea that UFOs are us from the future. That's probably the weirdest answer of all the possibilities. But stock is actually rising on that front, because when we are talking about manipulating space-time, we're literally talking about manipulating time. And even though I don't personally believe that we can go back in time based on my current understanding of physics, I'm willing to believe that I don't know it all. The whole reason why we're in this mess to begin with is we thought we understood everything about the universe, and turns out we don't understand a major aspect of it. So for me to be like, yes, I know we can't go back in time, that's also probably pretty preemptive. We're pretty damn primitive at this point. Maybe we can eventually start sending signals back in time. Maybe it does create multiple timelines, and we don't perceive those multiple timelines. So the stock is rising on the future human hypothesis. Stock is rising heavily on that front. And stock is falling actually on teleportation. Although I still think it's teleportation in the MH370 videos, I do think that the stock is rising a little bit on the annihilation aspect. Because what we're going to see here in a few minutes is we're going to dig through John Nuckolls' own writings of his own biography, of his own history in inertial confinement fusion. His own history in inertial confinement fusion. And we're definitely looking at a thermonuclear weapon in the MH370 videos. The question is, what is it doing to the plane? Is the plane literally going somewhere else? Is it being spat out in a million different pieces? Is it being vaporized? That's the ultimate question of what's happening to it. And then the last bit on the UFO stuff. Actually, we just kind of went through all of it here. We would have no chance against an alien race that has, let's just call it 0-point energy technology to keep it simple, right? The difference between the aliens that have the 0-point energy technology and humans is like the difference between a person fighting a blind person, a person of full capability fighting a blind person. They're missing one of their senses. Unless you're Daredevil, you have no chance. We're missing one of our senses. The sense that we are missing is the ether, is the extra dimension. They can communicate through an extra dimension faster than the speed of light, relativistically. You can't compete with that. They can make things disappear. You can't compete with somebody that understands an extra dimension that you don't perceive. They can instantly appear and be invisible and do a lot of things that we would think would be magic if that's the case. Sorry, that was not quite the last one. This is the last one, is that what technology came from the UFOs? If there is technology came from the UFOs, and this stock is falling heavily on UFO explanation. It'll never be out of the realm of possibility, but it's falling heavily. Because I think you can build a very specific pattern of technological advancement that leads to what we saw in the MH370 videos without evoking aliens at all. Without evoking any aliens whatsoever. The more you demystify the MH370 videos, the more obvious it becomes that this is our own secret weapons technology that's at least parallel with nuclear weapons, if not totally entwined with nuclear weapons. So what kind of technologies came? How about everything? If they did, transistors, microchips, What I imagine would have happened if we found alien technology, this is how it would have gone down. Go ahead and get ready to clip this. We find some alien technology. What we find is like a piece of a craft. We find this piece of a craft. It looks like a piece of metal, but it's shaped. And you go, well, that doesn't look like a natural shape. So the next thing we do is we take it and we look at it under a microscope. We look at it under a microscope and we see something weird. When we go to look at the surface of this material, it's organized. It's in a pattern. So there's a very specific pattern all the way around. We don't understand why it's in a pattern. But when we look at it on the tiniest scales, we're seeing patterns along the surface of this material. And we go, wait a minute. There's no way this is random. There's no way this is a geological formation that made these microscopic patterns along this material. And we realize that somebody must have produced this. Something must have produced this. And then what we would have realized from that is, oh, we can do this. We can make microchips that are at the atomic scale, or at least close to it. Not yet, but we will be able to get to that point. And then it's just a matter of scaling that up. But you would realize there's no way. There's no human capability at the time when we would discover that. Like, let's say Roswell was real in 1947. 1947, we didn't have the lithography to produce something, let alone a whole craft covered in that level of material manufacturing. That's what I would have imagined reverse engineering would look like. It's not that you just find the Booga sphere. Like you guys are I think the Booga sphere is bullshit, by the way, guys. The Booga sphere's got these hieroglyphics on it and what have you. No, that's not what you're looking for. What you'd want to be looking for is you look at the surface of an object like that and you look at it under a microscope and then you see the pattern. Like when you would look at a microchip, what that would look like. You're like, wait a minute. That doesn't look like a random surface pattern. That looks like something designed that. Why? Because the tiniest scales are where we begin to interact with a 0-point energy. And that's how we build microchips. And what do you guys think microchips are? It's just certain elements put onto a very specific pattern on the very tiniest scales and then scaling that up. Okay, I spoke on that too long. I want to get to some of the other stuff. Where is it? So speaking of that 3i Atlas, I don't think I'm going to play the clip. Let me go back to this. Do I have a clip? I don't know. Like, I guess I'm right again on the 3i Atlas stuff, right, guys? Because 3i Atlas came and went, and I thought October 29th was the day, right? Everybody said October 29th, they're gonna see the spaceship land or something. I don't know. I wasn't really paying that much attention, to be honest with you guys. But then I heard the rumors, it's accelerated, changed speeds or something like that. Let me debunk that right now. I'm the best debunker on the planet, guys. I'm not only a future Pulitzer Prize winner, also the best debunker on the planet, even if it hurts your feelings. 3i Atlas was just a rock. Ashton was correct. I called it months ago. The change of direction change of speed was totally natural. It was due to the gravity of the sun or the sun hitting it with the light, whatever. It didn't significantly change direction and come to a stop like people are saying in their heads. It was just totally natural. Avi Loeb was wrong. He was wrong. That's fine. Allowed to be wrong multiple times over. I always think everything's a rock. But I do want to defend Avi real quick because he did get attacked by some guy named Tyler, I think it is. And it seems like he went on this guy's podcast thinking it was going to be a different thing or something. And this guy Tyler's like really upset about it and attacking Avi over it. And I interviewed Avi. I don't think there's anything. I couldn't even imagine a situation where you would have a weird beef with him, like personal beef. Makes no sense to me. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Tyler guy is not credible. No one should take what he says at face value ever. And I say that as somebody where he claimed to have been in touch with a Marvel producer. Maybe he was wrong about that. Maybe he lied about that too, because he definitely lied when he made up a story about me. He made up a story about me that was fake. And I just want to say that that's fake. And so therefore, I think Avi deserves grace on this front, even though he's definitely wrong about that space rock, guys. Space rock, it was just a space rock. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. It's not an alien mothership. But good news is we got stuff that's even better than that. Okay. 2 more quick things. Number one is where is the Candace Intelligence Agency? Because I didn't even realize all of this. And I even hate to bring it up, but I'm only pointing it out because of the hypocrisy. I really do not care who Thomas Massey marries, or if she's 18 years younger than him, or if his wife of 30 years just died, or if it only happened 14 months ago, or if she also died under mysterious circumstances related to influenza or respiratory distress and acute fatigue. His wife died from respiratory distress and acute fatigue, and nobody's asked any questions whatsoever. 16 months later, Thomas Massey has undergone a complete and total makeover and is now just remarried a former Rand Paul staffer who's like 20 years younger than he is. Okay. And guys, I'm not one for conspiracies. That's not my thing, right? Everybody knows that. But I do have to wonder why Candace Owens and Ian Carroll and Ryan Matta, the people that love conspiracies, that everything is a Jewish conspiracy, why they have not mentioned at all that this is at all weird. Nobody's answered any questions about her death. It's never been answered. The literally cause of death doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But there's no questions being asked. And I only have to assume this is because he also politically aligns with them on the woke right, that they are anti-MAGA. President Trump came out today and issued a really, really damning statement, which I don't read right now in the air and sake of time, but really damning statement against Massey, endorsed his opponent as well. So sometimes I have to point out, guys, that this whole let's just call it the Israel situation, it's being used for political gamesmanship. And you're naive if you think that you're, above it, or you think that you're not being used in it. You definitely are. You definitely are. Everybody is basically out there. And on the other side, what I'll say is this is the last political thing to discuss here tonight. Is I did see, this whole back and forth with Tucker putting on Nick and what have you has been kind of ridiculous, if I'm going to be honest. It was pretty cringe when I think it was Representative Fine at this Republican Jewish convention. They had this whole cringe thing where they put up these signs that say Tucker is not MAGA, and their whole narrative is Tucker is not MAGA. I'm just like, it just seems like a middle school level production. I could come up with something do they still have, what do they call those people that do your propaganda for you? If you're in politics, I thought everybody's got a propaganda person that's hey, what should our messaging be? What narrative should we push? What propaganda should we push? I assumed that everybody had one of these people, but it feels like they don't have one or something. If they need one, I have a job, but if you offer me the right amount of money, I will help you out. Because I can definitely come up with better narratives than Tucker is not MAGA. That's the most boomer thing I've ever even heard of. If that's how you're going to attack the guy, you should have at least just called him a communist. So it'd be like, you're not MAGA. Huh, we're putting our foot down. This is like Saturday morning cartoon diss. What are we talking about here? So if they need help, guys, 7Ks in the chat. I am actually increasing my rate. If other people are getting paid 7K for that, for Tucker is not MAGA, that's your big attack. Tucker is not MAGA. Then my rate is at least 21K. At least 21K. At least 3 times higher than that, chat. Much higher. Anyway, hit me up, Rep Fine, if you need some assistance. I'm sure you got the money for it. Okay. We got through all of our politics relatively quickly. So now if you've made it this far, it's science time. First thing, did I take wait, where's my picture? Are you guys ready? I've got Yahtzees planned for you guys. I'm just too excited. Here we go. Here we go. Unshare that, reshare this. Look at this. Look at what I have here, chat. Look at what I have here. Let's talk about some nuclear weapons. What is this a photo of? What does anyone know who's in this picture that we're looking at right here? Let me remove this spotlight channel. You can see here. That is Colonel John Alexander we have on the left. This is a dinner table with wine. Looks like a very nice dinner. On the right, we have the GOAT, Hal Puthoff, world's leading expert on zero-point energy. And who is this in the middle? Who are we looking at between John Alexander and Hal Puthoff? That is Edward Teller. That is Edward Teller, father of the hydrogen bomb, sitting between pretty young-looking Hal Puthoff. This is probably from the 90s or early 2000s. And then Colonel Alexander, Colonel John Alexander. So, yeah, there you go. I just wanted to show this photo here of Edward Teller sitting next to Hal Puthoff because it's pretty wild that people think that I'm out there when I say that there might be a connection between fusion and zero-point energy or thermonuclear weapons and space-time manipulation. I've actually not seen a single person even propose the idea that thermonuclear weapons are causing wormholes or space-time manipulation. If anybody in the chat or in the comments, if you know of people that are saying that, please put it in my replies so I can look up their stuff, because I seem like I'm treading on new ground here, and I would love to find some allies of anybody else that might be kind of doing this same thing. One more. Okay, so let's just say like recently, I was searching around for John Nuckolls. I'm just going to post this whole thing here. Hold on. I was searching around for John Nuckolls and his connection to clean fusion or clean thermonuclear weapons. And I ran across this Reddit thread here. Ran across this Reddit. You can still see I'm still permanently banned on Reddit. Still permanently. They like really, they act like just kind of like needle you all the time. And they have this big thing at the top. Says this account has been permanently banned. Check your inbox for a message where we say that basically we're not going to unban you. We won't give you a reason why. You're a racist for calling people mentally ill. Apparently. They banned me for being a racist for calling them mentally ill. Okay. They are mentally ill, by the way. So on this thread of nuclear weapons, you find this thing, and it's got this blog post here. We're going to look at it in just a minute because, wow. Contributions to the genesis and progress of inertial confinement fusion, John Nuckolls. This is from a textbook from 2007. Textbook from 2007. So I found this. It's amazing. But let me just read through some of this right here. It says, some of the replies here, this chapter from a volume on the history of laser fusion is one of the most provocative things I've ever seen published on the development of high-efficiency thermonuclear weapons, notably things like ripple design. It's a first-hand account by John Nuckolls of his experience in both weapons design and inertial confinement fusion. In my read of it, I'm open to the other reads and interpretations. It confirms not just that ICF was derived from weapons concepts, but that weapons concepts were also derived from inertial confinement fusion insights. I don't think it's coincidental that he describes the achievements of Ripple in the same terms as he does his ICF insights. Anyway, he says he figured he'd post this right here. Another thing was interesting. These are just some of the comments I thought had some pretty interesting merit to it. Here we go. It says, Teller Ulam design is very stable, and the radiation transport methods seem to dampen instabilities. This is something that we're going to take a look at in a second, but John Nuckolls in this letter, or not even a letter, but in this document, I don't even know what you would call it, a biography. He says that they've figured out all these plasma instabilities. If they figured them out, why are we still worrying about them? We're going to answer that. We're going to get to that. Radical high efficiency weapon. So what he points out here is that some of the weapons were already really efficient. Like if you looked at the strength of weapon increase power, they were already going through the roof. So what he's saying here is like, if they were making a clean weapon that was on this scale, how are they doing that? How are they pulling that off? How much better can this radical design get than the weapons that were already going off the scales? That's what they're pointing out right there. And yeah, so this talks about it. Okay, and then let's see, the pulse shaping. So let me just skip this, close this. We'll come back to that. So here's what I learned at a high level. I've read the document, and it's essentially everything that we've already known, but it supports all of the ideas that we've already pushed, which is symmetry, pulse shaping, waves, resonance. This is how they achieved super efficient thermonuclear weapons. Resonance, all the things that Tesla talked about, energy, frequency, vibration. This is how they were able to achieve super efficient thermonuclear weapons. John Nuckolls literally describes in this document to such a level of efficiency that he must have either been the person who helped design the weapon that was used on MH370, or he helped pioneer the insights that led to it. That's how insane, in my opinion, his own words are. Keeping in mind, John Nuckolls is a literal thermonuclear weapon designer. No ands, if, or buts about it. He's a thermonuclear weapon designer that designed many thermonuclear weapons. So he has classifications and NDAs and stuff that he can't talk about. So keep that in mind when you read this. The stuff that you're reading in this book is only the things that he's been allowed to talk about. Only things. And there's a specific line that's been drawn where he's been in rooms with conversations with people and said, this is what you can talk about. This is what you can't talk about. Really important to realize that. Okay, one more thing here. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to fix my camera too. Oh, wrong one. How did I find this? I don't even remember how I found this. This is a declassified letter, declassified in part from a FOIA request, it looks like in 2013, from a letter in 1989. 1989. From John Nuckolls to the director of the intelligence community staff, General Edward Hines. Okay, I'm going to read this to you guys. As you know, dear General Hines, as you know, this is John Nuckolls speaking. As you know, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory is one of the 2 national laboratories charged with the responsibility for design and test of our nation's nuclear weapons capability. In addition, we have also developed advanced capabilities in the non-nuclear area. Some examples are the induction LINAC free electron laser. Chat. Pause, chat. Pause. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? In his letter from 1989, he's saying that we also built a free electron laser. By the way, I had never seen this letter. 48 hours ago, I had never seen this letter. 48 hours ago, I had never seen this document that we're looking at here. I think I had seen excerpts of it, but I don't think I'd ever seen this whole document. And I literally was doing live streams about how free electron plasma lasers are how they've been able to achieve this. And here you go. That's him saying, that was one of the examples in his letter here. He just says right there. Keep doubting me, guys. I'm telling you guys, real estate is filling up quickly. And I always write about everything city. Keep doubting. Okay. He says, the other example, Brilliant Pebbles. I think that's a SDI initiative, is Brilliant Pebbles. And the Special Isotope Separation Program. In addition to these technology programs, we have also dedicated groups of scientists who follow intelligence information on the Soviet Union and other countries. These analysts work with all member organizations of the United States intelligence community and produce finished intelligence, which is strongly rooted in our understanding of comparable technologies at Lawrence Livermore. I would very much appreciate the opportunity to host a visit to Lawrence Livermore by you and any members of your staff that you may deem appropriate. I believe this could be a very valuable two-way exchange of information. We could show you firsthand some of our current technology programs, and we would look forward to hearing of ways that that laboratory could be of further assistance in the intelligence arena. Okay, and then there you go, John Nuckolls, director of the laboratory. Is that not weird to anybody else other than me? So you've got the director of Lawrence Livermore, one of two laboratories that do nuclear weapons testing. Only two laboratories do nuclear weapons testing, and he's the director of one of them. He helped build the clean fusion bomb in the 60s. And there he is asking a general who was in charge of intelligence if they can share information, if they can help the intelligence community out. Help them out how? How would they be able to help out? Here's a thought. What if the way that they were helping out the intelligence community is twofold? One, disinformation. How are we going to control the narrative so that our adversaries do not get this technology? That's number one. Number two, allow them to use the technology in covert operations. You know what's really good for covert operations, chat? You know what people who plan covert operations really love? Super secret weapons. James Bond always has Q by his side to hook him up with the new magical technology. That's how I'm looking at this. I might be too conspiratorial on this front, but that's how I'm looking at that. Otherwise, why are you emailing generals who are in the intelligence community? Oh, because you've developed some super weapon. And if we want to dunk on our adversaries, here you go. Go ahead. Here's the magic button to press. Press this button and your enemies go away. I'm Petey the Pistol. You point me at bad people and pull the trigger, I make them go away. I make bad people go away. Right? Okay, let's dig into the science now. So he starts off with explaining his background. Let's just read the first paragraph. Inertial confinement fusion has progressed from the detonation of large-scale fusion explosions initiated by atomic bombs in the early 1950s to final preparations for initiating small-scale fusion explosions with giant lasers. The next major step after ignition will be the development of high-performance targets that can be initiated with a much smaller, lower-cost laser. In the 21st century and beyond, inertial confinement fusion's grand challenge is to develop practical power plants that generate low-cost, clean, inexhaustible fusion energy. Wow. Okay, let's start with the answers to the questions. I hate waiting, forcing everybody to wait till the end. What I've learned from reading this is that they don't have it all figured out yet. They don't have it all figured out yet. It's starting to make sense what happened. We developed H-bomb. We figured out this unexhaustible source of energy from inertial confinement fusion of the H-bomb, but we didn't figure out how to control it. We found out how to make a big boom. We found out how to make a big boom with Hiroshima, and then we found out how to make it even bigger. And then we found out how we can make it boom, but without all the heat. Just a pure ball of electrical energy. So we figure all that out. But then the next question is, how do you harness it? When you're trying to harness electricity, you don't make a bomb. It's hard to harness the energy from a bomb. It's not how you do it. You just want to pull a little bit of energy at a time, right? You don't want to make a big explosion and try to pull all of it. We just want a little bit at a time. So what I think happened was they figured out that there definitely will be unlimited energy because they did the math, they did the physics, they did the detonation simulations and tests, and they confirmed that this aspect of 0-point energy exists. That's the reason why Edward Teller was talking to Hal Puthoff. because he knows something like 0-point energy is real. So they figure that out. But then they need the material science to catch up. They need material science to catch up because the lasers are too big, they're too expensive, and they're not powerful enough. Actually, you can, if you just want to point it to one thing, there's more than one material science aspect that matters, but lasers are probably the thing that matter the most when it comes to fusion energy. And the lasers were not powerful enough. The lasers, so they made super powerful lasers. The problem is they made the super powerful lasers and they were too expensive. The super powerful lasers were too expensive. What does it matter if you can make a fusion plant if the lasers required cost $1 billion? If the lasers cost $1 billion, then your fusion is not going to be comparable to coal. Your energy, even if you can get over unity, it's not going to be cheaper than alternatives. So we knew the science and we knew the physics would work, but we didn't have it. It wasn't commercially viable. It wasn't commercially viable. And so now fast forward. And now we're at a point where it's becoming commercially viable. The secrets have leaked out to these various companies that are trying to do fusion. And they're all going about it a different way based on the research and based on the path that people like John Nuckolls have put us down. Because once again, what do we know? We know it can work. We generally know how it can work. But now we need to scale it down from a thermonuclear detonation down to something that we can become practical, that we can put onto the grid. So that's, I think, the high level. And for me, the more I see these images of these letters about disinformation, misinformation, it really makes me wonder. It really makes me wonder if the whole alien thing is just a giant cover, especially when I see Dan Farah and all these spooks go on Bill Maher and they're talking about this is a very serious thing we have to say, but they're speaking in these vague generalities. Why is this a serious issue? And do they know that it's related to nuclear weapons? Are we using this? Because that would be the ultimate cover to prevent our adversaries from taking this technology seriously, would be just to convince everybody that it's like it's aliens, it's beings from another dimension. That's what we would do. Okay. So first thing, after he goes through the history here, talks about Edward Teller, and then the design. The first design, this is just a very crude approximation. They can't really show it, but the first design of a thermonuclear weapon was you just make a case in case your fusion target next to your bomb, and then our bomb is just going to detonate our fusion target because we're going to get this huge amount of energy that's going to be released by our A bomb, and then the waves are going to hit our fusion bomb, and then our fusion bomb is going to detonate. That's all a thermonuclear device is. So what did they figure out after that? Well, two things. One, we don't need the bomb. We don't need this explosive bomb to trigger our fusion payload. They realized we can do an electric bomb, a non-fission trigger. He talks about that in here. We're going to look at it. And the other thing that they realized is, okay, well, I don't want just the waves. I don't want this bomb over here to just detonate this. I want it to be efficient. How do we make this A bomb detonating the fusion bomb? How do we make that efficient? Oh, we go at it from both sides. Now we put our payload in the middle and we detonate our waves at it from both sides to compress it evenly. We want to compress this fusion target payload evenly. Get the maximum pressure. So now it all becomes about geometry. So thermonuclear weapons are all about geometry. How did we get it to be super efficient? We compressed it isentropically. We compressed it equally from all sides. That's what they figured out in these. That's really honestly what this whole document is basically about. And I put a link to it if you doubt or if you have questions. Feel free to read it for yourself and put your comments in the chat, guys. Really interesting stuff here. So talks about large scale power production. and how we can, like, what are the challenges in terms of going from thermonuclear detonations to making an actual power plant out of it. So it says, and the cost related to it. It says down here, this is a really interesting paragraph. Let me see, I'll zoom this in a little bit. Could very small deuterium tritium burning fusion explosions be ignited without an A-bomb? Look at this. Look at this right here. Could it be triggered without an A-bomb? So he's talking now about clean thermonuclear detonation. Fusion bomb without the A-bomb. That's non-fission trigger. That's what he's talking about right there. Non-fission trigger. In the 1950s, John Foster, fission weapons design division leader, invited me to attend meetings of his special group focused on how to ignite deuterium tritium fusion explosions without the use of an A-bomb. Physicists Ray Kindler, Jim Shearer, and Jim Wilson were members of this group. Kindler developed useful approximations to the conditions for ignition of small DT mass confined by a pusher. I realized that a few hundred electron volt radiation temperature might suffice to implode and initiate a very small scale fusion secondary. Fusion secondary, the thing we're trying to blow up. Radiation losses into a hologram, which is just a cylinder, basically. So whenever you see this hologram word, that's just a cylinder. Losses into the cylinder wall decrease with more than the fourth power of the radiation temperature. With low radiation temperatures, excessive wall losses can be avoided, even though the surface to volume ratio increases. So to me, I think he's speaking about how to create a clean fusion weapon. Non-nuclear primary. So here it is right here. Non-nuclear primary. Indirect drive scheme. Non-nuclear primary. So now we're saying, okay, what did I just say? There's two components to your thermonuclear weapon. You have your nuclear fission primary, and you have, blowing up. And then you have your fusion secondary that you're trying to detonate. You're using this bomb to blow up this one. So if you're now saying that we have non-nuclear primary beginning in the 1960s, I used the weapons program latest radiation implosion and thermonuclear burn codes to explore the feasibility of igniting a DT fusion microexplosion with a tiny radiation implosion. I postulated a non-nuclear primary could be invented to energize a tiny radiation implosion. I imagined several candidates, including a plasma jet, a hypervelocity pellet gun, and a pulsed charged particle beam. Pause, chat. Pause again. Feel like this one might get a lot of use tonight, guys. Might get a lot of use tonight. So there he is, connecting the idea of using plasma as your non-fission ignition, which is exactly the same thing Friedwart Winterberg said in his 1981 textbook. Non-fission ignition can be done via plasma. So now instead of having an A-bomb, you've got an electric bomb. Plasma acts as an electric bomb that triggers the ignition. So he talks about how to increase the temperature, the yield. So the whole goal was to increase the yield as well. And of course, they were speculative about could a situation where you're not using an A-bomb, could that actually produce the same amount of yield as a conventional thermonuclear weapon? Now, at the end of the day, the answer was yes. It was widely successful. I don't remember where in here he mentions it, but he says that at first they tried out the experiment with Project Ripple. They did the test. It was successful. And then he did a follow-up test. The follow-up test was not successful, but he did a follow-up test to that follow-up test, and that was successful again. And the way he was able to get this all to work, pulse shaping. Getting your electric bombs to trigger and compress on the target, symmetrically compress on the target. In fact, he uses the exact words of isentropic compression. Now, take a look at this image. Look at it closely. If you're just listening to this, then what you're looking at here is you're looking at non-nuclear primary pulsed energy source. This is what they call the driver. And so this is separated from your fusion capsule. And there's a distance, says you have a meters of separation, you have standoff. So you actually have to keep your fission trigger away. You have to keep the two things separated. Why? Because if they get too close and you might accidentally detonate your bomb. So why are the orbs at a certain distance from the plane in the MH370 videos? Because they're trying not to blow up the plane too early. Try not to send it to the nether dimension a little too quickly, right? I mean, I'm speaking hyperbolically here, guys, but you get my point. So you can see then, if I was trying to create a situation where I'm making my waves super efficient, the only thing I would change about the picture that I'm looking at to my right, which just shows us, or my left, however you're looking at me here, is I would add multiple. I would add multiple triggers, and I would have those triggers be equilaterally shaped around my object. That's the only thing I would do. I literally would turn it into the polyhedral configuration that Freiberg-Winterberg talks about. Equilateral triangle on all sides, have your target in the middle. That will cause all your waves to focus directly onto the target, the 0 point. The 0 point. The 0 point is any geometrical system by which everything cancels out right at the middle or amplifies right at the middle. However you want to look at it. It's all just geometry, guys. Okay, so he's trying to increase the gain. So they're trying to increase the gain, which is essentially, let's say it's analogous, if not totally equivalent, to increasing the coefficient of performance. So the reason why I'm so convinced John Nuckolls was right is because his whole objective was to increase how much energy output we're getting out of our bombs. And he was successful in that. And he was successful in doing that using a non-fission ignition, which takes away at least the majority of the neutrons, at least the majority of the radiation. So he was successful at producing this. And if he's successful at producing that, then we should be successful at producing over unity from fusion, from inertial confinement fusion. If he found out a way to make a bomb, then there has to be a way to turn it into conventional energy source as well. Okay. Let me skip ahead a little bit. I think this was the next one. So radiation implosions, megatons to megajoules. Oh yeah, here we go. The radiation implosion approach excels at small scales because it can be partially control the physical process that limit performance. So do you guys know what these people are doing at Lawrence Livermore? What is John Nuckolls doing? They're making small thermonuclear weapons. Like that's what they're doing. They're building tiny thermonuclear weapons, scaling it down and testing it out and then going, oh, okay, this will work at the larger scale now. That's what they do. They just do it on these very, very tiny scales, but eventually they're going to scale it up, right? Somewhere right around here. Where is it? Where's my next quote here? Sorry. Somewhere it mentions the spherical convergence. Somewhere coming up here soon. Let me just Google it. Sphere. There it is. Okay. Okay, it was a little bit further down. Here we go. To minimize the implosion energy, most of the DT must be near isentropically compressed to a high density. I think that's what that says. The Fermi energy of DT compressed 1,000-fold is only 1% of the ignition energy. The ignition energy is only 1% of the fusion energy at 30% burnup. Consequently, the fusion energy generated can be 10 to the 4 times larger than the Fermi energy of the compressed DT. The energy can be further increased by igniting a relatively small fraction of the DT mass in a hotspot near the center of spherical convergence. Fusion yields can then be amplified by a thermonuclear propagation from the hotspot into a much larger mass of deuterium tritium. Even with 1% efficient implosions, the energetics is extremely favorable. Woo, chat. Right there, he's basically saying, how do you amplify energy? How do you amplify energy? He's saying the physical processes allow us to amplify energy. If I understood that correctly, 10 to the 4, relative to like the rest mass energy, the Fermi energy. I think that's what he means there. I could be incorrect, but I definitely understand the overall context is we can increase our efficiency significantly. And how do we do that? We need spherical convergence. Converging on all sides of our fusion payload. So what we got to do is we have to converge on it isentropically, meaning exactly the same on all sides. So that right there should be pretty much the nail in the coffin. The MH370 videos are obviously real. Unless a Boeing engineer that's a master of VFX that also knew about the missing plane, that also knew about Gorgon Stare and Color FLIR videos, also happened to be a nuclear physicist, and knew that the plasma orb should converge isentropically directly on the plane, then no doubt we're looking at a thermonuclear weapon. No question, no doubt. The reason why the orbs are converging isentropically on the plane, only one explanation. They are the non-fission trigger in a thermonuclear weapon. Now, it may be some splinter offshoot of conventional thermonuclear weapons. As I spoke with Dr. Greer about, they've been using, I don't know this for a fact, but I assume it to be true. They've been using nuclear weapons to hide this technology that may have been an offshoot of nuclear weapon research, which is space-time manipulation, what we call gravitational manipulation, but just a clever use of physics. So, the next thing was interesting down here. They talk about lasers, and this, I already spoke about this connection between the nuclear weapon technologies and the laser technologies, and how the laser technologies had to get bigger. He says, we recognize that coherent laser light could be highly focused into a small mass of uncompressed deuterium tritium to thermonuclear temperatures. So they knew that lasers might work. We realized that giant lasers might someday drive radiation implosions of milligrams of DT and might be suitable drivers for an ICF power plant. Interestingly enough, one of the new fusion companies using low-cost lasers to try to ignite deuterium tritium. So maybe they'll be right. And then you can see here's the pulse shaping. So, this is what the pulse shaping is, time and energy. Okay, yeah, this makes sense. So pulse shaping is exactly like control of waves. What are you trying to do with pulse shaping? Let me give you another analogy. Imagine you're in a bathtub filled with water, and your goal is to get the water to go over the sides of the bathtub. One thing you could do is you could try to take the water out with your hands, but imagine you don't have any hands. You have no hands. You can't pull the water out of the bathtub. How do you get the water to go over the edge of the bathtub? Everybody naturally knows the answer. You start rocking back and forth. But you don't rock back and forth randomly. Rock back and forth in the tub in a resonance motion, just back and forth. Just start rocking back and forth. And what'll happen? The waves will start to build up. And the next thing you know, the waves start splashing over the edge of the bathtub, right? That's the same concept as thermonuclear weapons, believe it or not. We are trying to get our waves to converge and meet at a point where now they amplify one another. In a sense, they may cancel each other, but they may also amplify each other. That's the objective. That's what we're trying to do with our pulse shaping. That's what we're trying to do with ignition to create super efficient ignition of thermonuclear weapons. I'm actually surprised I haven't learned this before. I'm surprised I'm the one teaching people this. I'm sure thermonuclear engineers have already done this and weapons designers. But it's surprising that it's not more common knowledge, at least to me. I mean, you're just reading it right here. Read it for yourself if you don't believe me. Where is it? Here we go. This is interesting right here. My highly speculative, far future. Oh, he talks about a thermonuclear engine. He says in 1961, this is John Nuckolls, 1961, I proposed to Lawrence Livermore director John Foster the laboratory to explore thermonuclear engine. In a memo I wrote to John Foster, the idea is to make the fusion analog of the cyclic internal combustion engine. DT or deuterium is burned in a series of tiny contained explosions. A problem is how to implode the deuterium tritium to burn conditions without a pusher. A laser system would be particularly advantageous here because the energy could be easily transferred via light from the walls of the chamber to the deuterium tritium to make a pusherless implosion of a droplet of deuterium tritium. Calculations show that such an implosion and the subsequent tamperless burn is feasible for a droplet of deuterium tritium. Possible applications for this engine are power production or a thermonuclear rocket. Hello. So he was already pushing, he might have been the person who pioneered plasma fusion propulsion. Might be John Nuckolls. I mean, can you go further back than 1961 and find anybody referencing? I mean, this is before we even had the concepts of field reverse configuration. That's how long ago this was. I mean, what do people think a thermonuclear rocket is? A rocket that uses fusion reaction? That's fusion propulsion. And then here's the follow-up to that. You ready for this? My highly speculative, far future thermonuclear engine proposal seemed like science fiction and was ill-timed. Livermore was focusing all possible efforts on responding to a high-yield Soviet atmospheric nuclear test. Our goals were to eliminate the potentially catastrophic first strike instability in nuclear deterrence and to search for technological surprises. So people were telling John Nuckolls that his ideas were science fiction. What ideas were those? A thermonuclear rocket is science fiction? That doesn't sound very science fiction-y to me. You're the guy that's literally developing thermonuclear bombs. Unless he's not talking about conventional thermonuclear rockets. Unless his ideas of science fiction were related to wormholes and warp drives and other things that we've been talking about. Remember, this is 1960s. These concepts didn't exist. There was no warp drive in 1960. I mean, unless you were watching Star Trek, and I think Star Trek was even late 60s, right? In fact, maybe he was helping get those ideas out there all the way back then. And what else was I going to say about this front? Oh, yes, they were looking for solutions. This is also really huge. There's so many little clues in this document. They were looking for solutions to the first strike problem. What's the first strike problem, guys? The first strike problem is whoever strikes first with nuclear weapons wins. That's what the first strike problem is. Do you guys realize that? So he was tasked with finding a solution. If somebody shoots missiles at us and we don't have time to respond and we get wiped out, how do you beat that? How do you beat the person that strikes first? Anybody in the chat have any answers to that? What do you guys think is the way that you would beat somebody the first strike? I have an idea. You warp their nukes back onto them. Well, how about the idea is those nukes never make it to us? How about we reflect your weapons right back onto you or destroy your nukes the moment they take off? Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case here, but if you read way between the lines, I could see how that's significant. Now look at this particular part right here. 1962. Now we're right around the time that the Ripple project was happening. Nuclear tests, dramatic advances. Dramatic advances in 1962. 1962, U.S. responded to tests by doing our own tests. And he focused on technological surprises. He says, I propose a nuclear test of a radical high-yield thermonuclear design so fantastic that my colleagues thought it was an April Fool's Day joke. In this radical design, a high-performance thermonuclear secondary was imploded with a highly optimized pulse. There it is right there, chat. What do you guys think a highly optimized pulse means? It can only mean one thing. They're talking about shaping your waves with geometry so that it's just like a choreographed dance. It's a choreographed dance, and we're literally controlling the waveforms. So he does this first design, and what does he say? He says, severely constrained nuclear design, engineering, fabrication were completed in 2 months. Said, day and night, Ron and I punched IBM cards as inputs. This is the thing I had read before. This is where I found this document before when I was looking into, I just realized what this is from. When I was looking into the origins of computers. When I looked into the origins of computers, I found that they go back to thermonuclear weapons. And I found this quote right here by John Nuckolls, where he was saying that not only do they need lasers for thermonuclear weapons, they need computers to do the math because you're trying to make perfectly optimized pulses in a 3-dimensional environment. It's one thing to simplify the math for a 2-dimensional environment. It's another thing when you're making a detonation in a 3-dimensional environment. It becomes a lot more difficult. Now you need supercomputers. That's why we started developing computers. Here you are. Okay, so then they did the test. The test was successful. Everybody was amazed. Wow, you're so great. Blah, blah, blah. Aren't you the best? So the next step was they needed to understand. I forget where it is in here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Next step. It says it right there. So this paragraph down here, I dream of thermonuclear engines. So he keeps mentioning thermonuclear engines. I had a dream of thermonuclear engines, but was it a possible dream? We did not know what laser size, target gains, or reductions in fluid instability growths and rates and implosion asymmetrics were necessary or possible. Of plasma instabilities, we knew nothing and had a lot to learn. Our computers and design codes were not adequate. Costs of lasers, target fabrication, and reaction chambers were not predictable. Fortunately, inertial confinement fusion was funded by the weapons program for weapons physics applications. I have a dream, chat. Am I tripping here, or is this just insane? Wait, what does this say right here? After Kidder reported on his meeting with Mayim of Hughes Lab to discuss future of high-powered lasers, Foster decided that possible weapons applications justified launching a laser fusion program. He appointed Kidder to lead this program. So, just if you're getting caught up here, John Nuckolls has now developed a clean H-bomb that has super high efficiencies from Castle Bravo and the Ripple project. And now they're going, okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start a laser fusion program now, using pulse shaping and high energy lasers. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here and just spoiler for you guys. Somebody early on asked me, when I started digging into this connection of thermonuclear weapons, people said, oh, when you talk about inertial confinement fusion, do you mean like the National Ignition Facility, the NIF? They're doing laser inertial confinement fusion. I want to answer that question now. Yes. Let me follow it up with another question. Who do you guys think started the National Ignition Facility? You can have one guess, chat. Who do you think started the National Ignition Facility, the NIF, where we're doing laser implosion, inertial confinement fusion? Yes, thank you very much. It was John Nuckolls himself is the person that started the NIF. John Nuckolls, the guy we're talking about in this document, literally says he's the one that started the National Ignition Facility. So if you're like, it's kind of weird that this guy's document sounds exactly like the MH370 plasma orbs converging on MH370, it's because this is the guy. This is the guy that he's the guy that started the National Enrichment Facility, because he clearly was also to some degree helping to get this science out to the public. There's clearly a line between national security, but that line is blurry. It's a blurry line. How do you define the line between what physics and technology the public should be able to know about? You can imagine anybody would have concerns about that in their head. Okay, there's more Yahtzees here. Here we go. Okay, plasma implosion in 1964. So right here, 1964. 1964, Kidler calculated a low-gain target energized by a direct laser radiation. Spherically symmetric laser light was absorbed by a hydrogen ablator to drive the implosion of DT contained in a dense metal pusher. High gains were precluded by use of the pusher. Ignition was calculated using somewhat less than a megajoule of laser light. Plasma physics and implosion symmetry issues were not addressed. Kidler addresses the use of high-powered lasers to generate temperatures and pressures in a 1968 publication. Wow. So they talk about a bunch of different experiments here that were going on. And the next thing he mentions is right here. So in this paragraph, it says, in 1969, Professor Moshe Lubin, leader of the University of Rochester Laser Fusion Program, and John Dodson, professor of plasma physics at Princeton, visited Lawrence Livermore to discuss laser fusion on a classified basis. Classified basis. I'm going to repeat that. This is a classified basis. Each had a target scheme. Neither scheme imploded DT to high densities. I briefly mentioned my classified 1960 to 1962 concepts and calculations. He's basically saying that he mentioned his classified Ripple project stuff. Later in 1971, a laser-driven plasma instabilities revealed serious problems for target designers. So these guys were talking about this stuff. They have been talking about it publicly, and it was classified, like the math, the physics, the wave shaping, all the math around that's classified. That's what he's saying right there. And I wanted to point that out because people wonder, if this is classified, what does that mean? Well, there you go. You're seeing it right here. They classify the actual math, the physics of this pulse shaping of this resonance. Now, where's the part about the hollow spheres? Somewhere around here. Okay, so he won some awards. Oh, these guys. This was interesting here. So what does he say about these guys right here? He says the Lasnex code used two spatial dimension finite difference scheme to simulate a variety of physical processes, including hydrodynamics, energy transport, and coupling between thermal ions and multi-group electrons, thermal radiation generation and absorption by Bremsstrahlung, and a variety of other nonlinear processes. Nonlinear processes, Bremsstrahlung radiation, these are all the same terms. I mean, it almost sounds like Professor Size, Professor Siz, talking about hypersonics right here. That's what this sounds like. He says, laser light transport and absorption of thermonuclear burn, including non-local transport of charged fusion reaction products. In 1969 and 1970, with 10-fold more power computers than 1960, two-dimensional distortions of implosions were calculated. So what he's saying is that we couldn't even do the math. We didn't even have computers that were powerful enough. And he mentions this later on as well, as he says that when they got to like the 90s, the computers get like 100-fold more powerful again. And so there's a connection between we need lasers to get more powerful, but we need the computers to keep getting more powerful as well, which tells me that we developed AI way before the public did. And we may have AI that's significantly more advanced. Okay. Okay, here we go. Did I skip ahead of this? Maybe. Oh, here we go. This is the page. In the late 1960s, I learned at an AEC fusion. Oh, it was right after that. at the AC meeting later that Professor Keith Bruckner presented classified calculations of laser-driven implosions of hollow DT microspheres. Kidler did not support Bruckner's proposal that the AEC explore commercial applications of laser fusion. So Kip Siegel and Bruckner formed KMS Fusion and applied for AEC funding to develop laser fusion energy applications. Do you guys understand the significance of this paragraph? So this paragraph here is saying that one guy presented hollow target proposal. The hollow target basically says you have a case of glass or something. Inside that case of glass, you have your fusion. And then you trigger that by shooting light at it, and the light goes through the glass, ignites the fusion target, and then it destroys the glass and then causes your implosion. So he showed classified calculations on how to ignite hollow DT microspheres, fusion targets, and he said, can we explore commercial power applications? And the answer was no. So then they went and made their own fusion company. Doesn't that seem kind of like a situation where somebody knows something's possible? The authority says, no, you're not allowed to go do it, or we're not going to fund it. And then they go do it anyway because they already know it's going to work. Anyway, it does seem like that way to me. Okay, next thing, 1980. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. We only got a few more points to get through here, but they're all really good. Directly driven electron coupled targets. Is this the one where they talk about electron lasers? This is where they talk about symmetry and thermal scattering here. No, I don't think that's the right one, though. Yeah, I think a little bit further. Yeah, let's skip through this. Upgrading of lasers. Oh, the declassification. Oh, okay. I think I missed one. Hold on. Oh, let me see. What the heck? Pumped? How come I can't find it? There we go. Here it is. Okay. What page was this? Oh, same page. You ready for this? Lowell Wood. This is extraordinary collaborator. So this is John Nuckolls' guy. Guys, this guy made a clean thermonuclear weapon. Who does he shout out? Who does he shout out in his document? Ready for this? Extraordinary collaborators. Lowell Wood, a brilliant young protege of Edward Teller, became a collaborator in 1969. Subsequently, Lowell made an outstanding contributions to the theory and development of ICF. Lowell also secured Teller's support. In the early 1980s, Lowell received an E.O. Lawrence Award for his outstanding contributions in many areas of work on nuclear explosive pumped X-ray lasers. What? Pardon me. Will you repeat that again, sir or ma'am? Lowell received the E.O. Lawrence Award for his outstanding contributions in many areas, including work on nuclear explosive pumped X-ray lasers. You mean the whole thing I just did a whole live stream about a few days ago that I didn't even know existed? And I said, if I imagined what a super laser would be that is beyond what we currently have, it would be a free electron, nuclear pumped, relativistic X-ray laser. Wow. That's pretty weird that that's literally called out specifically in his significant collaborators with respect to this. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I just thought that was crazy. And again, I thought the pictures of the guys here with the nonlinear. Oh yeah, and this is one of them. Lowell Wood is top left. So there he is. Shout out to this guy right here. There we go. I love shouting out people that nobody knows about. That guy right there, Lowell Wood, free energy electron laser. Sweet. Good work, man. Good work, guys. Okay. And then I think I already mentioned this, but he says, I predicted ICF would be valuable for weapons physics applications and would ultimately provide a fusion energy source. Here it is right here. Ready for this? I estimated that several megajoules of laser energy would be sufficient to drive high-gain radiation implosion, and that a high-risk alternative might be provided by directly driven targets energized by 100 kilojoule class lasers. I predicted ICF, inertial confinement fusion, would be valuable for weapons physics applications. What does weapons physics applications mean, chat? And would ultimately provide a fusion energy source. So this guy is just casually making clean thermonuclear weapons, and he's saying that inertial confinement fusion will be valuable for physics research, and it will provide clean fusion energy. And he didn't just say it with his words. He quite literally went on to found the National Ignition Facility, which, by the way, has achieved over Unity. They've achieved ignition. Did they achieve ignition? I think they did achieve ignition for a very short period of time. Yeah. It probably seems like I'm from the future because I saw a glimpse of the future, but also technically the past. You know, I saw the MH370 videos. I've shown them a million times. But once again, there's no doubt that this video is real, guys. That's what you're looking at. Like, why do you think they're compressing isentropically like that? That's a thermonuclear weapon. This is literally what John Nuckolls built. In fact, I would love to talk to John Nuckolls because there's no way he knows exactly what's going on in this video. Anybody that's worked with thermonuclear weapons, they know what they're looking at in this video. I'm honestly surprised that the government didn't come and talk to me. Presumably, the reason why the government didn't come and try to stop me on this is that it's been 10 years, and everybody who wanted to know about it has already figured it out at this point. So, I mean, that's the reason. But that's definitely a thermonuclear weapon. It's just not a conventional thermonuclear weapon. It's just not a conventional thermonuclear weapon, guys. It's obviously a lot weirder than that. Okay. And actually, speaking of that, one more thing I want to do a side tangent on is the meeting with Hal Puthoff and Colonel John Alexander. They talk about UFOs with Edward Teller. He's happy to talk about it, but he seems like he doesn't really know anything about it. This is the biggest evidence for me that aliens are just a psyop. Because people were like, if anybody knew, Edward Teller would be one of 5 people on the planet that would know about aliens and UFO technology. If we were reverse engineering it, he would know about it. And in the conversation with Edward Teller and Hal Puthoff and Colonel John Alexander, he seems like he doesn't even know about what Roswell was. So either he's a good liar, which is possible, or it really is just that we've developed this crazy physics, this crazy technology based on thermonuclear weapons, and it's so foreign to us when we look at it. Anybody that looks at the MH370 videos, your first thought is aliens, because that's how foreign it looks to us. But that's just how successful we've been at developing advanced covert weapons without the public knowing about it. Okay, back to the topic at hand. So then they build new high-powered lasers, which is the part where they do, I think, right here. Yeah, so here's they talk about the lasers that they need. And again, they're saying ideal spherical calculations to produce these laser shocks. At some point in here, they talk about how expensive they are, reaching over $1 billion to produce some of these more expensive lasers. So this was a really big drawback, was that how much power these things took to produce. Somewhere in here, 1972, declassification. Let me see. Oh yeah, 10 kilojoule laser proposal. So here they were making more and more powerful lasers. I think I've already kind of beat this dead horse as it is. Then the declassification. So declassification here. It says that even though they did some declassification, the hollow target were still classified. Where is it? Here it is, right here. So on this page about the declassification. So people say, oh, well, they declassified inertial confinement fusion. Now that I've listened to John Nuckolls explain it, they did not declassify inertial confinement fusion. They declassified just the basis. They said inertial confinement fusion's a thing, but don't look at lithium. Don't look at lithium. Don't make your lasers too powerful, and make sure that your fusion target is like 0.1 milligrams of target. So we've pretty much nerfed ourselves from ever really broaching the thing. It's too dangerous. They basically said, we're putting training wheels on your bicycle, and now we want you to go ride up the mountain. You're like, with training wheels on? Yeah, with training wheels on. Go ahead. Give it your best go, right? So he says, although hollow target calculations were still classified, we were allowed to note that the use of hollow targets would reduce the required peak laser power and might enable use of longer laser wavelengths. Los Alamos published the calculations of hollow targets in 1973 and 1974. So this is a guy that knows exactly all about these technologies. He knows about the classifications of them. He knows how they were classified. And here he is just straight up telling you, hollow target math is classified. Guys, wrap your brain around it. MH370 got zapped through a portal. Why is there even a thing called hollow target calculations? I'm telling you absolute 100% truth. I did not know there was even a thing called hollow target calculations for thermonuclear weapons 48 hours ago. And now I'm looking at a document talking all about hollow target calculations and how they're classified. Do you know what would be a great hollow target? A Boeing 777 flying through the sky, being circled by 3 spheres, and then creating a hollow target with the lithium-ion batteries on the inside. Using those lithium-ion batteries as your fusion payload. That either zap that plane into non-existence or teleported it somewhere else. Maybe they fractured the timeline. If that thing is really manipulating space-time, then they fractured the timeline with MH370. I surely hope that's not the case. But you know what? Nothing would surprise me at this point. Now, here's another Yahtzee. If you haven't had enough Yahtzees, let's see, we've had pulse shaping, isentropic compression, super powerful free electron, nuclear pumped X-ray lasers, Hal Puthoff sitting next to Edward Teller. If this isn't enough, if you still think I'm spinning you a tale, if you still think that I somehow made all this up, that just coincidentally, there's this document out there by John Nuckolls, the guy that literally developed the clean H-bomb, explaining all the same physics and science that I've been talking about that we see in 2 military videos. If you still think that's fake, more power to you. Ignorance is bliss, baby. Ignorance is bliss. But here you go. Here's another Yahtzee. Edward Teller predicts, where is it? Somewhere here. Edward Teller predicts that ICF would solve the 3rd global energy crisis. Where is it? No, how are this many thirds? Here it is. Teller's perspective in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Teller predicted ICF would solve the 3rd global energy crisis after fission and whatever MFE stands for solved the first 2. So basically he's saying we're going to use fission, which is nuclear technology, nuclear energy, and then whatever MFE stands for, maybe that means solar power. And then after that, inertial confinement fusion will solve all of the rest. Teller also suggested that high-powered lasers would enable exploration of the physics of high energy and matter densities. What do you guys think they're talking about here? What do you guys think the physics of high energy and matter density is? Any thoughts? It's quite literally gravitational manipulation. High energy, high matter, that's gravity. We're talking about black holes. That's what they're talking about. The more energy you fit into a region of space-time, the more you distort space-time around it, the more curvature you produce. That's what we've learned from wormholes and warp drives. Right there. Yahtzee again, chat. More Yahtzees. Okay. Couple last thoughts. So 1983 rolls around. 1983 rolls around, and he gets pulled into the SDI initiative. Somewhere in here, I don't know exactly where. Somewhere in here, yeah, here it is. In 1983, President Ronald Reagan, Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, was launched. Director Botzell promoted me to Associate Director of Physics for Lawrence Livermore's 400-person physics department. So then he transferred the X division under his own department. So this is where John Nuckolls became in charge, or at least had a major role now at Lawrence Livermore, 1983. Fundamental fluid and plasma instability problems. Here you go, right here. Fundamental fluid and plasma instability problems were addressed, leading to a sufficiently stable ignition target to design for NIF, National Ignition Facility. There you go. You want to know something else? I've got even more, Chad. This is nothing but Yahtzees and spice tonight. It gets even crazier down here. Where is it? Somewhere here. Here, listen to this right here. 1987, Roger Botzell announced his plan to retire. During his 17 years at Lawrence Livermore as director, he presided over the growth of a laboratory with enormous potential. He initiated Livermore's second-generation ICF program and strongly supported ICF efforts. Botzell's successor would face apparently impossible problems in the fusion area. In 1987, Lawrence Livermore's $400 million magnetic mirror machine was shut down so that the U.S. MFE funding could be focused on tokamak development. Okay. We just did a live stream. Like 2 weeks ago about free electron plasma lasers and how they use the plasma as a mirror. The plasma acts as a mirror to confine the light from the actual reaction itself. So when I read something like they were building a magnetic mirror machine for fusion research, it sounds very similar. It must be in the same vein as those plasma lasers. So they deleted that. They deleted the thing that they were supposed to be doing. And instead, they went with the tokamak, which was stupid, which was never going to work. Tokamak was never going to work, and they went ahead and invested $1 billion in a tokamak that won't work and threw out the $400 million thing that actually was going to produce something. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic here, but you get the point. Yikes, chat. Big yikes. And then down here is the final thing about the laser targets here. So this is like now getting to the quote unquote the current time. This was written in 2007, the third generation. This is where he starts the NIF. He starts the National Ignition Facility. And he talks about the weapons costs and the budget costs. And the budget costs were actually a factor. The sad part is there was budget cost factors. And they have some breakthroughs here as well. And then so here you go. The NIF launched third generation ICF program. At an early 1993 Livermore ceremony, I announced the first steps to build the giant megajoule scale National Ignition Facility. 30 years ago, at the Lawrence Livermore initiated the world's first laser fusion program. The far-reaching goal was to achieve ignition of small fusion explosions in the laboratory, both for weapons and physics applications, and to harness fusion for civil power. Throughout these 30 years, Lawrence Livermore has led the world in inertial fusion, inventing both direct and indirect target drives, building a series of ever larger, high-powered solid-state lasers, extending from 1 joule scale to the 100,000 joule scale nova, and also by conducting a series of highly diagnosed laser implosion experiments, which have provided a solid scientific foundation for inertial confinement fusion. In the past 5 years, the laser program has made extraordinary advances in lasers, targets, laser, and experiments. Today, the U.S. Inertial Confinement Fusion Program is poised to take the step to ignition. The national needs that ICF addresses have become time urgent with the passage of the Hatfield Amendment limiting nuclear testing. The ICF program in general, and this Lawrence Livermore laboratory in particular, are challenged again to achieve a new generation of extraordinary advances in science, technology, and program management. So there you guys go. That's pretty much the finish of this. So he was designated to be the leader of the National Ignition Facility. He's the one who built the NIF right off the bat. And there's a little bit more here about fast ignition and some additional developments that they did, but that's pretty much. Oh, was this advanced targets the thing that I need to address? Oh, no, that's it, guys. So final closing thoughts. I also fed it into Grok, and I had Grok. I said, hey, Grok, go ahead and review those scientific papers or compare what John Nuckolls is saying relative to the things that I've been saying on nuclear energy. And it found some connections. So I'm just going to read here some of the quick scientific paper connections. It's pretty cool that Grok can do this. Shared themes. Says, here's some of the shared themes. The hollow target's core principle, compressing fusion fuels to fusion conditions, echoes several papers that Forbes, it's 4 orbs. It's Ashton the Demon, 4 orbs, Grok, please. Echoes several papers that Ashton the Demon 4 orbs cites and his dense plasma focus and plasmid. For instance, parametric studies of dense plasma focus for fusion propulsion. A coaxial electrode system forms a plasma sheath that collapses into a high-density pinch for fusion, similar to how the hollow target's implosion, but using electromagnetic acceleration rather than lasers. So right here, these 3 papers, all 3 of these papers, these are all papers that I've referenced in my Twitter posts. They all are basically saying that we are producing fusion through plasma convergence rather than using lasers to get it to happen. We're basically shooting plasmoids at each other. It's some form or another of helium, what helium energy is doing, shooting plasmoids at each other. So instead of trying to cause our A-bomb, we're using the plasma itself to cause our fusion reaction to occur. The other 2 papers that it references, Dense Plasma Focus by Frank Mead. Jesus. I mean, there you go. And then the other one it says is force-free time harmonic plasmoids, which I haven't spoken about in a while. This is actually Jack Nechamkin. It's not Frank Mead, but that also counts. And then aneutronic fusion. Hollow targets typically use DT, but Forbes' reference often focus on clean fuel, which outputs charged particles for direct energy conversion or propulsion. And what is it referenced here? What is it referenced right here? Edward Teller. Edward Teller's 1992 paper on magnetic dipole confinement for deuterium helium-3 plasma proposes open field systems for rockets, differing from the hollow target's neutron-heavy ICF, but aligning and using confined plasma for high beta. So, and then the last one, look how weird this last one is. I didn't force the AI to do this. Literally, my only prompt to the AI was compare my scientific papers that I've referenced to hollow targets from that John Nuckolls document. That's all I told the AI to do. And it came back with the plasmoid thruster experiment, Richard Eskridge, 2003. It references Amy's dad. Details plasmoid propulsion via magnetic stabilization, comparable to how the hollow target compression, but for thrust rather than static ignition. So the point here being that the science is out there. We just haven't known what to look for. We see all this stuff about plasma propulsion, but we don't realize its connections to thermonuclear weapons. There are direct connections to it, so closely linked together that John Nuckolls himself was coming up with a thermonuclear engine. And he was in group chats. He was basically in group chats in 1960 with his buddies. And they were saying that the stuff he was talking about was sci-fi. The guy is developing thermonuclear bombs and super high-powered lasers. What kind of possible thing could he be saying in group chats that your buddies are going, dude, you're doing too much Star Trek right now? I'm just saying it's not outside the realm of possibility that he was talking about the precursors to warp drives and wormholes, even before they were even on anybody's radar, 30 years before they would have been on anybody's radar. So I hope you guys enjoyed this deep dive tonight, guys. I will recommend that if you want, like a lot of people ask me about scientific papers, I just asked Grok to reference my public posts on Twitter, and it came back with 5 different scientific papers that you can also easily get the source on. Just have Grok say, just tell Grok, look at Ashton, the scientific papers that Ashton Forbes has publicly posted. It'll give you a list. You're going to get dozens back. I forgot about half these scientific papers. We're literally well over 100 at this point. So if you want those scientific papers, that's what I recommend you do. Use Grok, have Grok feed you back the answers. And if you don't have, the premium, you can just reply, I think, and ask Grok publicly, and it'll tell you. So hope you guys enjoyed it, guys. MH370 was zapped into a wormhole by an aneutronic thermonuclear detonation, probably helped to be invented by John Nuckolls. Hal Puthoff is hanging out with Edward Teller, telling him about 0 point energy. 0 point energy disclosure 2025. We're living through it right now. We got Elon Musk talking about thermoputers. We got fusion energy is all the rage. Super excited. Let's do some super chats and let's call it a night. And I just realized as well that I totally forgot. I didn't go live on Rumble. I just totally forgot to even set it up. My bad, guys. My bad to my Rumble and Pilled chat homies, guys. This was apparently an X and YouTube exclusive. Sam Fisher, my bad. This may have been previously asked, but do you think free energy microchip production is still dependent on ASML's EUV lithography? No, I don't think so. But the better your lithography gets, the more precise your lithography gets, the more output you're going to get, the better efficient your free energy microchip is going to get. I'm kind of out on the free energy microchip. I mean, I still love it. It's like my number 2, but number 1 for me right now is fusion. Fusion is directly tapping 0 point energy. I almost guarantee it. That's how they're able to get these huge gains on these thermonuclear detonations, is they're tapping into the vibrations and fluctuations of 0 point energy, and they're causing an amplification effect to occur. So that's my opinion on that. Anyway, last thought on this, on the lithography. Lithography is making microchips, by the way, guys, is Charles Chase's coherent matter wave beam patent. Oh, by the way, I do need to go to this real quick. I did find this pretty cool as well. I need to pull this back up. One more thing. That reminded me. I'm glad that reminded me. Remember this document, guys? Remember this document? This is a document nobody knows who wrote this document, but it's got like this 200-page list of all these things that happened over history. Well, I'm just going to go to 2006 because one of the references, I asked Grok to cross-reference Hal Puthoff. Where is it? I asked Grok to reference Hal Puthoff. Oh, crap. I don't know where I put it. Huh. Weird. And John Nuckolls. And maybe it wasn't up there. What it came back with was one of those 2006 things from this document. From this document in 2006. Where did I notice it? Right here. And I was just reading through this, and look what I found in 2006 right here, guys. Are you ready for this? Former Lockheed Martin Skunk Works senior tech fellow Charles Chase runs the Unlab at MIT. Chase worked in exotic propulsion, metamaterials, and low observable technology at Lockheed, and more recently developed a DARPA DSO quest to grant support quantum fluctuation propulsion research, an area that ATIP programs study linked to UAP. I didn't know this document was calling out Charles Chase. There he is, guys. We've been making Charles Chase famous, but apparently his name has been connected to this stuff for a while. Now, somewhere in here, supposedly, it references Hal Puthoff talking to Edward Teller. I don't know where it is here, but this is really interesting. I mean, here you got Eric Davis talking about George Bush. Hal Puthoff tells Jacques Vallée that he and Eric Davis are pursuing a Lockheed Martin technology for a jet hovercraft tested in the 60s. Weird. Let me see what else I wanted to say. And some of this may not be as reliable, but I want to read this last part right here as well. I forgot about this. 2006, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory physicist Henry Deacon, which is a fake name, claims he's employed by a 3-letter agency and that black budget physics is decades ahead of physics in the open source. Deacon claims that Project Shiva Nova uses arrays of lasers and creates rips in the fabric of space-time. Okay, now I'm really interested. Wait, what? Is this a real Lawrence Livermore test? We just listened to the guy that ran Lawrence Livermore. And now we're wondering, could these lasers be manipulating space-time? And this person was claiming to be a whistleblower in 2006. So I'm not going to read through all that, but essentially what he says in that document is he says that we may have been manipulating the time continuum. We may be creating time loops. We may be creating alternate timelines when we start manipulating with these technologies. And the reason why I thought that was interesting is that would be a good reason to hide this stuff. I mean, yes, there's a lot of reasons, like the collapse of the economy, like people just offing themselves, global war, greed, mass destruction. But another reason why we might be hiding this technology is because we might be literally manipulating the time continuum. If we can go back in time, then we definitely are. I'm literally, fingers crossed, we can't go back in time. If it turns out we can go back in time, then we are cooked. Then we are super cooked, guys. But that's essentially the argument that document brings up. Timothy Foster, I recognize you now, says, carry on. And Ashton, fellow Orbi ambassadors, thank you very much. Thank you, Timothy Foster. And Stuart says, the potential energy density of these devices seems so vast. Could their use in testing be influencing the direction of magnetic poles or trigger an endothermic event like an ice age? That's a good question, actually. It's actually a good question. They're not big enough in the MH370 videos to impact the magnetic poles. But to answer your question in another way, yes, these are doomsday weapons. You don't really have to worry about magnetic poles flipping because they could probably just wipe out the whole planet in like a dozen different ways. So I do think that these weapons represent doomsday. I do think they quite literally represent the end times. I think a lot about Revelations, the Alpha and the Omega, because this nuclear weaponry, it's either a weapon or it's an energy source. It can be used for good. It can be used to create things, and it can be used to destroy things. And to me, that's what the Alpha and the Omega is all about. The first and the last, the beginning and the end. Okay. And then one last donation. Astro, Quantum Official, Resonant FELs, free energy lasers, vacuum polarized plus cohere, electron, positron pairs. I believe that's what that means. Boy, I'm understanding all the acronyms now. What is wrong with me? So, yes. What we have to, and this is, if you really read between the lines on John Nuckolls stuff, like this is why, guys, I am tongue in cheek a little bit, but not even really, is that there are good reasons why this technology has been hidden. Like people like John Nuckolls, he is hiding this answer. He's hiding the answers, not just out of civic duty, not just because he has NDAs, but clearly he must morally believe that the right choice is to not have it all just come out at once. And that's the thing that scares me the most. Because if there is a good reason to hide it, then we are definitely cooked. We are definitely cooked. Every good thing has been destroyed in this world, and this would probably be no different. And that's why I say that I'm not even excited about disclosure, true disclosure, because true disclosure is going to lead to ultimate power. And ultimate power corrupts. Absolutely. That's my final quote for tonight, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the live stream. Hope you have a great night, guys. And we are going to talk more on Wednesday. Science, physics, and politics, guys. Once again, Jason Giorgiani. That'll probably drop maybe in a week or so. And then before that, on Sunday, we're going to have Dave Rossi and Salvatore Pais. And we're going to be talking about, all the normal cool stuff, guys. Have a great night, everybody. Love you, MH370X. Peace out, guys. I'll put a link in the Discord in the chat, as always. Later, everybody.
red eyes, scanning the black, tracking the heat, never turning back. Control 22, a covert gaze. Control 33, in the cosmic maze. Controls in the mix, secrets untold. Silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. In the silence of space, they keep their post, shields unseen yet feared the most. With precision and speed, they warn of danger, keeping us safe from the missile's anger. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. And roles in the mix, secrets untold, silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alert